My name's Dan Archer. I'm the UK Managing Director for a business called Visiting Angels. We are a domiciliary care provider, a home care provider. We're originally a US business, so we were started in America 22 years ago now, actually, by a guy called Larry Meggs, who's our international chief exec. The business has grown substantially over the last 20 years. So as far as the world is concerned, we're in 5 countries and we have over 600 franchisees. As far as the UK is concerned, I brought the business to the UK, where are we at now, good grief, in 2017. So summer 2017, I started my conversations with the guys in Philadelphia, which is where our head office is, in order to bring the business to the UK. So I decided the first thing I wanted to do was to set up a franchise myself. I thought if I'm going to help other people to run a business, I need to have done it myself to be able to help you effectively. So first thing I did was start an office in Sheffield in the north of England. 2 reasons. Firstly, I'm a northern boy, so I'm from Sheffield, so that's home for me. My wife's from Barnsley, so we're sort of settled in an area where we're both very familiar with. But also because Sheffield's in South Yorkshire, which is the 3rd poorest county in the UK. And I took a view that if I could make a private pay service work in South Yorkshire, it's probably going to work all over the world. We started the business in 2017, late 2017, got registered with the Care Quality Commission on the beginning of 2018. Got our first client, a lady called Dorothy, who we started supporting in late January 2018. And from that point to now, so we're sort of just over 2.5 years into that process, we are currently about 1,700 hours of care per week. And we are invoicing around about £40,000 a week as well. So we're a sort of a £2 million a year business in less than 3 years. So we've grown, and we've grown throughout the pandemic. I've got to say, when in 2017 and 2018, I wasn't planning on us having a global pandemic. I don't think anybody sort of sat down and thought in the next 5 years, this is what we're going to be dealing with. But we found a few things through the pandemic which have meant that our business has been very successful. And really what I want to try and do, if I can this morning, is sort of to share a little bit of that with you so that you can get an understanding of what's enabled us to be successful, how we've been able to grow through the pandemic. And obviously, if we've got any questions that come from that, we'd love to be able to answer those questions as we go through the presentation as well. So we sort of entitled this session sort of top 5 tips for growing through a pandemic. Now, I think it's worth me saying that, you know, there are certain sectors of the economy where it doesn't matter what your top tips are, it's impossible for you to have grown through the pandemic. So we are fortunate enough to be in a sector that there has been an increased demand for what we do through the pandemic rather than a reduction in demand. But I think that's only in a small part why we've managed to be as successful as we have. So I want to go through just some things which I think are sort of basics, I guess, things that you know, irrespective of the curveballs that business throw at you, the things that you need to consider in order to ensure that you are able to carry on being successful. Number 1 in those is PMA, is positive mental attitude. It's about maintaining a focus and maintaining a positive attitude in order for you to carry on developing your business. If you spend too much time looking at everything that's going on in the media, all the commentary that comes from politicians, all of the negativity that comes from the press, then you would want to close your doors, go and sit in a dark room somewhere and not deal with the world. Now, the reality is that if you put yourself in a position where you are going out there in order to be successful, you stand a far better chance of being successful. So, you know, tip number 1 is positive mental attitude. It's about saying you've got to want to go out and be successful. You've got to find a way of doing the things that you need to do. Now, obviously, you've got to do that safely. And the nature of what we're dealing with in terms of a global pandemic has meant that the safety element has become more important really than it's ever been. But, you know, from our perspective, we've modified the way we do business, but we've not stopped doing business. We've modified the way we interview and recruit carers. We've modified the way we market the business. We've modified the way that the caregivers deliver the care that they deliver. We've definitely provided an awful lot of additional training and a lot of additional PPE to make sure that everybody's safe in what they're doing. But we've started from a position of saying, actually, because of coronavirus, people need more of what we do, not less. And as a result of that, if we maintain a positive attitude and we're out there promoting our services, telling people what we can do, offering help, being flexible in the things that we can do, then there is every possibility for us to grow. And we have grown substantially through the pandemic. To give you an idea of that in sort of real terms, in terms of numbers, my office in Sheffield, which is the original franchise in the UK, at the start of the sort of issues around the pandemic back in March, we were at 1,100 hours a week. We're now at 1,700 hours a week. So we've added 600 hours a week. So in essence, 50% up on where we were back in March, through the lockdown period, through the release that happened post-lockdown, throughout the coronavirus pandemic so far. So it is possible to grow if you are being positive, finding a way of doing business. So number one, positive mental attitude. Number two is being informed. And it's about making sure you understand what is possible. It's about making sure that you're able to educate people from a position of knowledge. And it's also about making sure that if you're in a franchise network, you're sharing that knowledge around as well. So we take a slightly different view with regard to our business. And one of the things that makes us different as a care provider is that we say we are carer-centric. And what we mean by that is we've made our caregivers the most important people in our business. And now the reality of what happened, when we go back to sort of March, April time, when Thursday night at 8 o'clock every week, we were out there clapping for carers. I'm very happy that the rest of society eventually caught up with Visiting Angels, but we've valued our carers since we started our business. And it's lovely to see other people join in with that. But from our perspective, what we were actually thinking about through that period of time is, how do we keep our staff safe? When everybody else in society has been afforded the luxury of potentially working from home and locking the door and keeping the world at bay, my teams have had to be out there in society supporting vulnerably placed adults that needed care and support. So we had to make sure that we were educating them in order to ensure that they were safe and protected from the risks, but also that, most importantly, that by being safe themselves, they were ensuring that the clients that they supported were safe. Okay. So we put together specific training programs. We were helped by that because we're part of an international care business, five countries that Visiting Angels operate in. So we were in a position whereby we were able to take advice, take training collateral, take marketing materials from the US and use those with a bit of modification in the UK. So we've actually, over the course of the pandemic so far, we've developed 4 standalone separate COVID training courses. As the position with regard to the pandemic has changed, as the advice from government has changed, we have brought caregivers back in for training. What we've not done is we've not gone down the road of insisting that all of our training has to be done remotely. And I know there are some people that work in the care sector who've used the opportunity to say, well, let's make all of our training a digital training course. We believe it's important for recruitment and selection, and it's also important for learning, that our caregivers are in a classroom environment taught by a trainer. For recruitment selection, they are recruited face-to-face, not digitally, and that when they come into the business, they are trained appropriately by somebody in a classroom. So we've had to modify our classroom structure. So we've had to have a socially distanced system in place. We've had to ensure that people have been sat more than 2 meters apart. We've had to have very strict rules with regard to hand hygiene. So, 4 times a day through the working day, my office just down tools and everybody goes off to the toilet to wash their hands for 20 seconds, and then they log that activity in a hand hygiene chart in the office. So we've changed the way we work, but we've not come away from our core belief that training is delivered better when it's face-to-face. And actually what you do as a care provider, the more training you provide to your staff, the better the service that they provide. So tip number 2, making sure you're informed, making sure you're educated. Tip number 3 is about flexibility. Now, the reality is that none of us really knew when all of this started how it was going to pan out. We've all had to be flexible. We've all had to change accordingly. And that flexibility has manifested itself in lots of different ways. So when we started, beginning of lockdown, and a proportion of our work stopped because a large part of what we were doing in terms of community liaison work was going into the community with our clients to help them to carry on leading the life that they wanted to lead. Now, obviously, when government is saying you've got to stay at home, we're not then able to say, okay, Mrs. Smith, let's take you down to the theatre. So that changed the sort of work that we were doing. We had to be flexible to say we're not able to do that work anymore. But in order to ensure that our clients are still receiving the support that they needed, what support can we now provide in the home in a safe way that provides some degree of stimulus and provides for independence for our clients, even when it's difficult for people to leave their home. So that required a bit of flexibility. But we had to have flexibility in terms of the way we operated in terms of the supply of things like PPE. So, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were in pretty good position. Actually, we'd stocked up relatively early on face masks, and then the world started buying face masks, so it was impossible for us to get hold of them. Thankfully, we'd stockpiled a proportion of them. Because we're an international organisation, we've been able to leverage our buying power internationally, and we've been able to get hold of stock at a reasonable price to support our franchisees to ensure they're still able to get face masks and gloves and aprons. So again, that required a bit of flexibility because we were to start with, we were using our traditional suppliers. I used to have one supplier for PPE, and we then had a position where quite quickly we had 8 suppliers for PPE. So that required flexibility from us. So tip number 3 is remaining flexible. Tip number 4 is about the resilience of the business model that you operate. So it's important, if you're going to be successful through a pandemic, that you have a business model which serves you well and enables you to be resilient. Our care business is very different to many care businesses, and it's definitely different to many care franchises. In a lot of care businesses, the care staff that work for the franchisee are full-time staff. The problem with full-time staff is that full-time staff expect to be doing 30 hours a week. Now, one of the issues that manifested itself early in the pandemic was that we were seeing that a proportion of our staff were self-isolating because they were symptomatic or because they lived with somebody that was symptomatic. We had a proportion of our staff who were shielding because they were in a high-risk group. When we look back to March and April, we were in a position where something in the region of 20% of our workforce were removed from work. They were being supported at home, SSP, to ensure that they were carried on receiving their pay. We were helping them in terms of deliveries of groceries, etc., to make sure that they were still able to live their lives. But the reality is we were 20% down on the people we had working in the business. Now, if our business model had been a traditional care business with full-time staff, that creates a problem because you lose 20% of your capacity, but also the 80% of people who are still there don't have any spare capacity to be able to do additional visits. So the reality is you are forced to say to people, I can't do that visit. I'm not able to deliver care in the way that you want me to deliver care. Our business model is different. So we are part-time in our staff. So most of the caregivers, the visiting angels that work for the business are doing between 16 and 20 hours a week. Now, the advantage of that has been that when we have 20% of our workforce not working, I've got 80% of the people that work for me who are able to do a few extra hours, who've been able to support the collective to ensure that our clients continue to get their service. So that's been really important. So the model there has helped us. The resilience that's built into our business model has helped us to weather the issues that have happened in terms of staff who've been self-isolating. I think the other thing to then bear in mind, again, this is absolutely down to the way we're structured and the thing that makes us different as a provider. We're carer-centric. And what we mean by that is we really look after our care staff. And it makes Visiting Angels a good place to work. And it also means that we have a very low staff turnover. So the industry average in the care sector for staff turnover is close to 50%. The staff turnover rate in my Sheffield office is less than 10%. Now, where that makes a difference is that instead of a client having visits from 7 or 8 different carers in a month, my clients are receiving visits from 1 or 2 carers in a month, because I'm not having to always introduce a new face to replace somebody that's just left. The advantage, again, from an infection control perspective there is that instead of 7 or 8 people going into my client's home, we've had 2 or 3 people going into my client's home. So fewer people going in, there's a smaller infection risk, again, which has meant that we've been resilient in the face of what's happened in the community with the pandemic. So that's tip number 4, is resilience built into your business model. Tip 5 is making sure that you maximize your opportunities based on what comes at you, the things that come at you through society, through the social care sector, through the healthcare sector, through intervention from politicians. So we received notification from the NHS in the early part of the lockdown phase, actually, that they expected 5% of people who were suffering with COVID were going to be discharged from hospital into a home care setting. The expectation was that our market would become busier because people would be needing more home care, not less home care. Now, in addition to that, unfortunately, there's been a very high incidence of coronavirus in residential care facilities. And what that has led to is that families are actively choosing now to keep mum at home for longer because they want mum in a safe environment. They want mum in a safe environment supported by a familiar face. And again, so both of those things, which are sort of market shifts, if you will, were things that enabled us to be able to develop our business in a way that we couldn't have done without the pandemic. So that's my top 5 tips for growing a business, surviving a pandemic, growing a business during a pandemic. Would I choose to repeat the last 6 months? I'd say probably not. I mean, it's been very stressful. We've had to be innovative in our approach. And it, you know, there is a huge burden if you are a person running a business which is considered to be a key business, which is supporting people in society when many in society are not leaving their own homes. I felt that if we ensure protection for our clients and also for our care staff as well. But the reality is that I had to sleep at night thinking I'm asking my teams to go out into society when everybody else is staying at home and working from a home office where they possibly can do. And that, you know, meant that I was worried about my team. I was worried about my caregivers. I was worried about my office team, my management team. I was worried about my franchisees and about their people as well. So there have been a substantial numbers of opportunities that have come our way through COVID-19. It's presented a real opportunity for us to develop our business. We've proven as a sector that we're recession-proof, and you know, I've always sort of said that the home care sector is recession-proof, but the reality is that we're evidencing the fact that in addition to being recession-proof, we're actually also global pandemic-proof. And from our side as well, we are developing a business that's proving that our business model specifically is very well suited to ensuring business continuation through a global pandemic. So there have been lots of positives through as well. You know, as I say, a little bit of worry, a little bit of stress, but an awful lot of positive from it as well. The most important thing from my side is that we measure our business based on the difference that we make to people's lives. And uniquely for us, because we are focusing our attention on ensuring carers are really well looked after, we focus our attention on caregivers to ensure that if we make a difference to a caregiver, each caregiver that we make a difference to can make a difference to 2 clients. And as a result of that, we make a lot of difference in the community. We've done that. We've done it successfully. We've done it in a way that's enabled us to do more, not less, through the pandemic. We've grown our business. We are more profitable than we were pre-pandemic. We are definitely busier than we were pre-pandemic. And I think the nice thing is that our reputation has grown because we've been in a position to be able to say yes to people who need care quickly when many in the sector have struggled a little bit because they've had capacity issues with staff or they've been struggling to ensure the continuation of the service that they provide. So yeah, as I say, it's you know, many of the things that we've done have been things that we've had to quickly innovate on, things that we've sort of pivoted. That's become the business word, isn't it? To pivot, to ensure that you're able to maximize an opportunity. But the start point for this is what I said right at the very beginning. Tip number 1 is about positive mental attitude. It's about believing that people need more of what we do, not less. And as a result of that, it's in our interest to find a way of working that we are delivering more care, that we are growing our business. You know, as we ran a socially distanced franchisee training course in May with 8 franchisees joining us. So, you know, the demand for what we do, the number of offices for Visiting Angels has grown through the pandemic. And that, from my perspective, I think is in no small part down to the fantastic effort that my team have put into ensuring that people are looked after and people are supported. Okay, so from my side, I want to make sure that everybody hearing this understands that if you want to talk to us about care, if you want to talk to us about care franchising, we're very interested to talk to you. We've got 10 minutes left now at the end of this seminar for me to be able to field any questions from the audience. So is it possible for us to see whether, if you've got a question, if you can tap it into the Q&A function at the bottom there. And obviously we can take a bit of time just to see whether anybody's got anything they want to specifically address. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming up. I don't know whether our facilitator is able to help us there, whether you've got any questions that have come through. Anything?
Yeah, there's nothing coming through at the moment, but I mean, I've got a few questions that we get to talk over, just in terms of what makes a good franchisee for Visiting Angels, what are the sort of qualities that you look for, even the care sector in general, what are the kind of qualities that you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I can be critical of the care sector as a whole, because I think that we're slightly different to the majority, and to justify that, 95% of care in the UK is done a certain way, and we very much fight against that. We do it a very different way. What I would say for the majority of the volume care providers, you need good operational skills to be a franchisee. In essence, you're a logistics person. You're ensuring that a limited resource, i.e. your carers, is able to get around your territory to provide a service to your clients in an efficient way. What I would say from our perspective for Visiting Angels, the thing that marks out a Visiting Angels franchisee is that they are excellent communicators. We know that our way of delivering care is different. I personally believe our way of delivering care is better. And what I need my franchisees to be is a passionate advocate for a different way of doing things. So principal skill set I'm looking for is somebody that firstly believes that our way is better. You've got to believe the mission. Our mission statement for the UK is to become the UK care sector's employer of choice. I want people to want to work in care, and I want them to want to work for Visiting Angels. Now, I need my franchisees to share that vision, to share that mission. And then they need to be active in their community telling people about it, because when 95% of people do it a different way, it's only because you can point out how you're different that people will realise, well, yeah, it's worth talking to them because they have taken a different approach.
Brilliant, thanks, Paul. That's really useful. Well, I think you seem to have covered everything, because we're not got any questions coming through. We have got people in the session, but there's no questions coming through. So I feel like you must have done a really good job at answering everyone's questions, or addressing any concerns or information that people want to find out more about. So,
well, listen, as I say, from our side, obviously, for those who are on the call who are a delegate, and I know there's the potential for some people who might be also standholders who come to see what we sort of talk about today. But yeah, anybody who's a delegate who's interested in talking to us about franchising, we have a stand here today. So if you want to spend a bit of time to visit the stand, I'm available for a one-to-one chat. We can do another video call if you want. We can do a text chat as well. We've also got some franchise information on the stand that you can take away from us here today as well.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thanks so much, Dan. Well, like I said, just if anyone wants to find out more, just head to the stand. Perfect. Great stuff. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.